All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So glad you could make it. Today, we're diving into The 1 Minute Manager
Ooh, a classic.
by Kenneth Blanchard and Spencer Johnson. It's a classic for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about it from the management perspective,
Okay.
obviously. So if you're listening to this show, you probably are interested in self-improvement
Sure.
and probably in business and management. And so we're going to be focusing on that today.
Sounds good.
So the 1 Minute Manager, it's really all about, you hear the title and you think, oh, it's all about like,
Quick fixes.
Yeah, like
microwave managed. Right?
yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
a microwave meal, right? It's like, oh, I can just get in, manage somebody in a minute, and then I'm out. But it's really not about that
Yeah.
at all. It's about,
really about efficiency and clarity
Yeah.
and respect for people's time.
yes. And the book really boils down to 3 techniques
Okay.
that it talks about. And they are 1-minute goals,
Right.
1-minute praisings, and 1-minute reprimands.
Interesting. That last one, I think, is where people get a little...
Yeah, a lot of people, yeah. Like I have a little bit of hesitation around it.
Right.
But we're going to dive into all of these and hopefully,
Back those.
yeah, unpack them and give you,
The nuance.
yeah, the nuance and how this can actually be applied and how,
In a healthy way.
yes, in a very effective way. So let's start with 1-minute goals.
Okay.
What is a 1-minute goal? So the idea behind a 1-minute goal is that you sit down with your team member
Okay.
and you come up with a goal that can be written on a single piece of paper and read in under a minute.
So it's really about being concise and specific.
Yes.
And making sure everybody understands what the goal is. So
Right.
there's no confusion.
Absolutely. And I love that idea because, so much time in business is wasted with these long drawn out explanations of what the goals are. And then people are confused.
Right. And I think this is something that's so valuable for managers because it helps you avoid those situations where you think you've communicated something clearly, but then it turns out the team member had a completely different understanding.
Totally.
And then it's like, well, whose fault is that? If you have that 1-minute goal, it's right there in black and white.
Exactly. It prevents so many problems from even starting, right?
Absolutely.
And so the book gives an example. There's a new employee and he's constantly missing deadlines,
Oh, I've been there.
right? I think we've all been there. And the manager finally sits down with him
Yeah.
and says, okay, what are your goals? And they go through this process of coming up with these 1-minute goals.
So breaking down those bigger tasks
Yeah.
into these manageable chunks.
Right. And guess what? Things turn around for the employee.
Yeah, because now he knows exactly what he needs to do.
Right.
He doesn't have this vague sense of like, oh, I got to do all these things. He's got these concrete steps.
Yeah. And it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's something that he can look at and say, okay, I can achieve this. And then, you check in with the employee regularly.
Right. So there's that accountability built in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To see how the goals are coming.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think that's so practical and something that we could all use in our lives, right?
Yeah. I mean, even outside of work, think about personal goals. If you're trying to, I don't know, learn a new language or pick up a new skill,
Yeah. Or even like
having that 1-minute goal can really help you stay on track.
declutter your house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Break it down into those small, manageable steps.
It's like that whole thing, how to eat an elephant.
One bite at a time.
1 bite at a time. There you go. Okay, so that's 1-minute goals. Let's move on to 1-minute praisings. Now,
This is a good one.
this is one of my favorites. I love
Yeah.
positive reinforcement. I think it's so effective.
Me too. I think so many managers underestimate the power of just acknowledging when people are doing things well.
Right. And it's not about, being like overly effusive or anything like that. It's just about being genuine and specific.
Yeah. And timely.
Yes, time.
You catch somebody doing something good,
Right.
you acknowledge it right then and there. You don't wait for, the performance review 6 months down the line.
Exactly. And think about it from the employee's perspective. Like, have you ever had a time when you received, genuine, specific praise?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's such a motivator, right?
Yeah.
It makes you want to keep doing those things that are getting recognized.
Makes you feel good.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like your work is actually being seen and valued.
Yes. And there's a reason for that. Like, there's actually neuroscience behind this.
Oh, yeah.
Positive reinforcement releases dopamine in the brain, and that's associated with pleasure. And that's why it makes us feel good and makes us want to continue those behaviors.
And I think it also builds trust between the manager and the team member because it shows that the manager is paying attention, that they're not just there to criticize or point out mistakes.
Yeah. And it creates a more positive work environment overall.
Absolutely.
Right.
When people feel appreciated, they're more likely to be engaged and productive.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to work in an environment where they're constantly being criticized?
Exactly.
Nobody, right?
Nobody.
All right. So we've talked about 1-minute goals
Yep.
and 1-minute praisings, which are, I think, pretty easy to get behind, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
But now we have to address the elephant in the room.
Here we go.
1-minute reprimands. And this is where I think a lot of people get
A little uncomfortable.
a little uncomfortable, a little squirmy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you reprimand someone in a minute?
Yeah.
And is that even effective?
Right. I think the key here is understanding that it's not about, yelling at somebody for a minute straight.
Right. And it's not about,
It's really about addressing a problem behavior
yes,
quickly and directly.
directly. And the book emphasizes that it should not be personal.
Right. It's about the behavior, not the person.
Exactly. And so the book gives these 3 steps for giving a 1-minute reprimand. So first,
All right. What are they?
you state the problem behavior specifically.
Okay. So be very clear about what the issue is.
Yeah. Like, don't beat around the bush. Just say, hey, you did this,
Right.
and this is wrong, or whatever. And then the second step is to express your feelings.
Okay. So this is where the manager's being honest and vulnerable.
Yes. And it's not, again, it's not about like, you made me so angry. It's more like,
Right.
I'm disappointed.
This is how this behavior impacts the team.
Yes,
This is why it's a problem.
exactly. This is why it matters.
Yeah.
And then the third step is to remind them of their value and your belief in their ability to do better.
Okay. So you're separating the behavior from the person.
Right. So it's like, hey, you messed up and this is why it matters, but I still believe in you.
Right. Because everybody makes mistakes.
Right.
And it's important to remember that, even when you're giving somebody feedback that isn't positive,
Mm-hmm.
They still need to maintain that relationship and that trust.
Absolutely. So it's a tricky thing, right? But I think if it's done well, it can be very effective.
yeah. And I think the key is really in that third step,
Right.
that reminder that you value the person,
Right.
that you believe in them.
It's like, I'm reprimanding you because I care about you
Exactly.
and I want you to succeed.
Yeah. And I think that's a message that can really resonate with people, even when they're being corrected.
Absolutely. Now, I think it's important to note that, 1-minute reprimands, they might not be appropriate in every situation.
Right. I mean, there are some people who are very sensitive to criticism.
Right. And it really depends on the personality of the person you're dealing with and also the severity of the issue.
And I think it's important to remember that even if you do use this technique, you need to be prepared for the person to have a reaction
Absolutely.
and to be able to handle that reaction in a constructive way.
Right. So there you have it.
The 3 pillars of the 1-minute
The
managers.
3 tools,
There you go.
the 3, whatever you want to call them, the 3 techniques, 1-minute goals, 1-minute praisings, and 1-minute reprimands.
And I think it's important to remember that the 1-minute manager is really a framework.
Yes.
It's not a set of hard and fast rules.
Right.
You need to adapt these techniques to your own style,
Absolutely.
your own personality, the specific context of your workplace.
It's like a starting point.
Right.
It's a foundation. It's not.
It gives you a foundation to build on.
Right.
But ultimately, you need to figure out what works best for you and your team.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great takeaway for our listeners. Like, what resonated most with you about the 1-minute manager? And how can you take these principles, these techniques, and adapt them to your own unique leadership style?
And if there was one technique that really resonated with you or that you're maybe a little hesitant about,
Yes.
I think it would be great to reflect on why that is
Right.
and how you might experiment with it in a way that feels comfortable and authentic to you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's our deep dive on the 1-minute manager. I hope you enjoyed it.
Me too. It was a good one.
We'll see you next time.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.